I think I've always felt like I've just never been an employee. Like I've always just felt I'm meant for more and I can do more and my skill set can allow me to do more. So I've always felt like, okay, I want to be able to have this freedom of saying I can do what I want to do on my time frame and not having to ask anybody. So that was the first, like the big motivation of why, right? We want to be our own bosses. Then I realized that like you're still kind of, your business is your boss. So I still got a boss to respond to. So as I'm learning through this process and I'm kind of zooming out, I'm answering this question on the fly because I haven't really thought about it. But I feel like for me, the biggest reason of why I do this is just basically to be free and to just give back to people. So I just want to be able to take care like of my niece, right? Like this is an opportunity. She's so young. If you want to go to school, go to school. But hey, there's also this whole other world that you're exposed to that I was never exposed to at that age. So if I can influence and help as many young kids as possible to say, hey, there's more out there than just like, a 9-to-5 and you can do this. And the sooner you start, the better. That's really my main goal. And just being able to provide for my loved ones, right? Like be able to pay for trips and like saying, hey, I got you. Like, let's go do this. Those are the things that motivate me to work hard, is to be able to do things to enjoy life, but not just for myself, but like for my little family that I have. Yeah.
Hey, welcome back to the Pursuit of Property podcast. Cade and I are joined today with a friend of ours who's been in the business a while now, also in the coaching program, and is also crushing it here in Fresno. Genesis Joya, welcome. I totally blanked on the name.
Meaningful Investments.
Meaningful Investments.
Yes, sir.
So much to remember. Genesis, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate this. I know you guys have been doing this for a while, so it's an honor to be here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We appreciate you coming in. To get started, Genesis, I don't know any of your story, how you got started in real estate. I feel like there was just one time we got connected. Oh, you're in real estate. We're in real estate. Okay, cool. We're all in the same industry. Can you give some backstory and context? Were you doing anything before? How did you get started in real estate? How did you get to where you are now?
Yeah. So how I got started in real estate, basically, I was working as a correctional officer here at the Fresno County Jail. And during the training period of this, there's only certain things that we can do until we're fully trained. So they had us bring a book. And so I actually had Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I had skimmed through it years before and never really read it, never took in the information. And so I just chose that book to take with me there while, we were downtime to read it. And I started reading it and, it kind of started speaking to me. And it's also like after 2020. So I started working at the jail like right after COVID, right? And so I did a lot of sales job prior to that. So I wanted to do something different. I wanted to have a quote unquote career. So I was like, hey, I've always been interested in doing something in law enforcement. I think maybe this is the opportunity. I was working at CarMax at the time and I didn't know if I was going to get my job back because we got furloughed. And so they were hiring people back based on seniority. And I had only been there maybe 3 years and people had been there 10 plus years. So I just wasn't sure if I was going to get my job back. So I was like, let me just have a backup worst case. Ended up getting accepted, went through the whole process. And when I was there again, reading the book, and I was just like, man, I don't know if I could do this for 20 plus years. And like just hearing the stories, walking into that environment, it was a very, very negative environment. And so as I'm reading this book, it kind of spoke out to me and I'm like, I think I could do this. I've done sales before. I reached out to Heather at the time, who works at Strive Real Estate Group. Her and Cam, I met up with them a couple years back, and they actually sold us my house, me and my partner, our house. And so she's the only person that I knew that was doing real estate. And I said, Heather, hey, I want to get into real estate. Like, what can I do? When I was reading the book, mostly what stuck out to me was the investing part of it. Not so much the resale, but I did figure like, hey, if I have my license, that might help as well. So I was kind of curious and just getting information on both. And she was like, hey, I don't recommend you doing it part-time, because I wanted to just try to do both. I just had been at the jail for maybe like a year and a half or so. So I didn't want to quit too soon if it wasn't going to work out. But she was really honest with me. And so I really appreciated that. She was like, hey, if you do part-time, it's going to be really rough. You can do it, you can try, but you're going to have to like really bust your butt. And at the jail, I was already working like 16-hour shifts and getting mandatory overtime there. So realistically, I didn't think that it was something that I could do. So, I get on Instagram, I get on TikTok, and I'm looking at all these videos. And there's this video that I see of this guy. His name was Paul Kona I don't remember his last name, but I think he passed away. He had curly hair and he was making this video and he's like, hey, if you want to, live out here in the wilderness in the cabin and make all this money and sell real estate without having to put any money down, like this is what I do. And he went into like this big old spiel about what wholesaling was. And I'm like, I could do that. I could definitely do that. So I started doing all this research. I got PropStream at the time, like just trying to figure it out on my own while still working at the jail. And I'm like, I need a mentor. I need to be able to move this needle a little bit quicker. I need to know someone that's already doing this. So again, reached out to Heather again. And I was like, hey, I want to do something in wholesale. Like, who do you know that is doing this that maybe I can pick their brain? And, just a couple conversations back and forth until finally Darren Wade with Strive Real Estate Group, he needed someone for acquisitions. And so she was like, hey, I think he's interested in seeing if maybe you'd be open to the opportunity. And so, met up with him, interviewed him, or he interviewed me. And he liked the fact that I was already kind of putting in the work. I was trying to make my own calls and I already was doing my own research, trying to figure out how to just do the script and those kinds of things. And so, yeah, he offered me the opportunity. And so I was like, okay, let's do it. I was still working at the jail at the time. And so I needed to get a minor knee surgery. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to be out during this time. This is my time to focus. I can learn as much as possible. Got the minor knee surgery. And then in February 2022, I had like maybe $9,000 that I had from like my, what do you call it when you go on, not unemployment, but...
Is it the like paid leave or like the family leave?
Like the paid leave.
Was it workers' comp? It wasn't.
Not workers' comp, but basically whatever money I got from not working during that time frame. Yeah. I had about $9,000 saved up, which is not a lot of money, but I was like, it's something. And so I was like, if I'm going to do it, I just have to go full on. And so I told Darren, hey, I'm going to quit my job. I'm going to do this full time and I'm just going to get my real estate license as well. Join the Strive team. And so I just did it and I was like, okay, we'll figure it out. So finally quit in 2022 and then just started doing full time. In April, I got my license for real estate. So I was doing a little bit of both, but essentially that's how I got started in real estate.
Can we rewind for a second? How did you end up with Rich Dad, Poor Dad? Did you buy it for yourself or did somebody give it to you?
So I was accepted at this school called Fresno City College. And so they gave us that book in one of the classes that I was taking. And so I just had it. That whole time. I went to college maybe for like 4 years, just trying to figure out what the heck I wanted to do. And I could not figure out what I wanted to do. I had enough to transfer to state and I had to pay for my own schooling. So I was like, okay, if I have to pay for it, I have to figure out what I really wanted to do. And I could never figure it out. School was just not for me. And so that's why I had that book. And it was just sitting there for all those years until they're like, bring a book for when it's downtime. And so that was the one I chose. And when I reread everything, I was like, yeah, there's no way I'm going to be working for someone else. Like I need to work for myself and start a business. And so that's kind of what inspired me to do that.
And were you friends with Heather prior to her selling you your house? Or
no.
That was the first time you had met her?
Yeah. So we met up with her a couple years back, working on my credit and trying to get a house and everything. So yeah, she was just our realtor. I mean, I never hung out with her or anything like that, but she was really great. And so I always tell her this too, like she inspired me to be a realtor because the way she treated us and the way the service was, I was like, I want to make someone feel like how she made me feel when I bought my house. And I knew that I could do that. And so that kind of inspired me as well to get my license too. But prior to that, I had no idea anything about real estate. Yeah.
Wow. That's such a journey. So from when you reread the book and you reconnected with Heather, you went on the leave, you started researching and taking action to then leaving your job. Do you remember how long that was?
It was about a year.
Okay, so it was like a year of discernment, kind of figuring it out.
Yeah, about that.
And how did you feel when you quit your job?
I was a little nervous, but I was excited because I know my work ethic, and I just knew that like when I commit to something and I have my set goal, like I will do everything possible to make that happen. So I wasn't really doubting myself, but it was more of just like, well, yes, it was doubting myself in a sense of like the confidence, right? Because I had no idea of this whole world here. And I remember the day that I met you, you probably don't remember this, Scott or Cade, because we were at this meetup and it was my first time going to a meetup. So after I started working for Darren, I started getting, more into like the community, the Facebook pages and those kinds of things, and then learning about the meetups. So I was like, I got to go to one of these and just see what it's about. And it was the one that's on Blackstone right there, that building. And you were sitting behind me and I hear like somebody say, yeah, I have like X amount of rentals. And I think, how old are you right now?
I'm 26 right
26. I don't know if you were like maybe 23 or 24.
now. I would have been 22 or 23.
Yeah, so you were super young. I'm 32 now. So when I heard you say that, I turned around and I'm like, who's this guy? He's fresh out the womb and he's got like 17 doors already. And so it was really exciting, but really like nerve-wracking. I didn't even stay the whole time because I just felt, I felt like I didn't belong there, but like I belonged there at the same time. So I felt like this is where I need to be, and these are the people that I need to be surrounded with. But it was also kind of like the lack of confidence because I didn't come from that background, right? Like my parents worked in the fields. I barely any education. So I kind of was like struggling with that a little bit at first. But, it was just cool to see like you're able to do it. And then there was like a lady that was like maybe 40, 50. She's trying to learn how to do it. So it was like really exciting just to be in that room with everybody. But that first time, it was when I first saw you and you as well. You guys were sitting next to each other and I was like, dang, that's crazy.
We were probably showboating.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Classic 22-year-old.
I know. So Genesis, those first few months, I think you mentioned you officially leave your job in February, you get licensed in April, and you start as an acquisitions agent / real estate agent under Darren and with the Strive team.
Correct.
I feel like we don't highlight this as often, but how did those first few months go? Because I mean, especially at this moment, you have a partner, you have a house, you have bills that need to get paid. How did those first few months feel like not having that stable W-2 income?
Yeah, it was stressful. Gratefully, my partner has a full-time job, so she does work a 9 to 5. So we had kind of that on our, back pocket, but it was still stressful, right? Like debt at the time, everything is all piling up. But again, I'm just trying to go full force. Also having Cam and Darren, they really, really helped me out too as well, right? Darren's paying for all the leads, so I don't have to worry about coming out of pocket. My job is just to do the best that I can to close these deals. And so that's what I had to do. And so, I was able to get a deal here, deal there. That first year, I think we did like 6 or 7 under with Darren's his company, acquisitions company, and so did that for a little bit. And then my goal was always like, this is going to be like for me. I want to be my own boss, my own real estate business that I want to grow. That was always the goal, and I was always transparent with Cam and Darren. And so I let them know like when it got to a certain point where I felt like I had enough knowledge to be able to jump and make the leap. They were very understanding and they're great people. I have so much just praise for them because if it wasn't for them, I think I would be, not where I am now because they definitely helped me move quicker into where I needed to be by the mentoring. Darren always let me go on listing appointments, any, appointments that I did. It wasn't just I got the lead and he went to the appointment. It was like, hey, you got the lead, let's go to the appointment together. And it was really cool because I'm a really hands-on learner. And so for me, that was like, okay, I love just being there and being in the work and learning how to do it that way. Yeah.
How do you feel like working with Darren and Strive sped up the process? I mean, can you elaborate on that? A lot of people we talk to want to start out on their own. Cade and I started out with mentors as well. What do you feel like was impactful there?
So many things. Well, one, it was me not having to worry about how am I going to get these leads, right? So that's number one. He was able to provide that value for me. In return, I have the value that I can have the time to work these leads for you because he was so successful in their resale business. He didn't have time for these leads. So it was like we were both providing value for each other. So number one is he was able to provide leads that I didn't have to pay for. That definitely helped me out there. And then two, it was just learning, right, getting exposed to the community, being able to meet people like you guys, going to these meetups, all these other things that I just didn't even know existed. And I felt like if I would be doing this on my own, it would just be more confusing. Where do I go from here? What do I do next? Because you're trying to teach yourself and then you have like YouTube University that, can teach you, but it's so vague sometimes, right? The information that's on there, it's like, and then there's so much information. Where do I even start? And so just having that guidance and being able to be like, hey, Darren, what do I do here? Or what do I say in this situation? And so just being able to have someone to go back to and answer questions versus just trying to figure it out on your own. I feel like if anybody is starting off, I would definitely recommend partnering with someone or having some type of mentor because I think we always want to say we did it on our own, but the truth is we need other people to help us get there.
Absolutely. Yeah. What was the timeline? Because I know you said your end goal going in was you always wanted to have your own business. You wanted to be your own boss. I think you said that was February of 2022. Mm-hmm. What was the period and what was the time frame for when you officially, quote unquote, left the nest and started doing your own thing?
So officially it was in 2024 last year with Devaniel. Devaniel and I partnered up for a little bit. Again, we both had the agreement like, hey, he wants to have his own business. I want to have my own business. But we were at the point where we had enough knowledge, but then we also, the finances, we needed each other for the finances for the mailers, right? So we were like, hey, let's do this together. Did that for a couple months at the end of 2023. And then 2024 in May of last year, when you guys had the Deal Champs meetup, I saw, so many people talking about being partners with their, or being business with their partners. And like, again, that was always my goal. So seeing so many people go up there and talk about that and how they're able to work with their partner, like that was my dream. And so I'm like, what am I waiting for? What am I waiting for? Devaniel and I, we have a good partnership, but we want different businesses and we want it separate. So like, we're only hindering ourselves is what I felt from keeping each other from doing what we want to do. We got to just rip off the Band-Aid. And so, him and I had a conversation. We're like, okay, cool, let's do this separately. And so we did, and signed up for the boot camp. That following after the event, signed up for that boot camp, and that like changed everything. And so basically starting, I think it was May of 2024, officially went on my own. So I was partnered a little bit with Devaniel there, and then May 2024 is when I officially went on my own.
Were you dealing with the same feelings when you went off on your own as when you left your job as a correctional officer? Was it the same type of feelings or was it different?
It was a little different in the sense of like, okay, now everything is on you, right? When you have a partner like Devaniel and I, we had specific roles. I remember we even met with you, right? So we could distinguish what roles we should do. And so it was nice to have someone there to, if I was falling back on something, he could hold me accountable and vice versa. So not so much that I was scared, but it was like all these responsibilities now lie on me. I can't hire anybody, so I have to basically learn how to do everything, which I already kind of did, but it was more of the structure. And so I was scared of the structure because I've always been a person that's opposite of structure, very last minute, very unorganized. I've never known to be a person to do things in order. And so one thing that I loved about separating and just doing it on my own is not only just like the business growth, but the personal growth that comes with it and like the accountability that you have to hold yourself up to. So that for me was the hardest thing to kind of face at first. It was almost like I could do this. Like, I don't need anybody. I could do this. Like, I can do this. I don't need any help. But then it was like, okay, Jen, you do need to put your pride aside a little bit and figure out what you need to stay on top of everything and what organization and who can you put in what to do these kinds of things, right? And so at first I was just all over the place. Luckily, I joined Jason's program, and so he helped me a lot with my schedule. I started getting on top of my schedule, looking at what that looked like every day. And so just taking action. I mean, the biggest thing is like, we sit in these meetings and we sit in these Zoom calls, and it's like, you guys are giving us basically the floor plan of how to do it, but we just don't take the action. And so I just like, basically you got to look at yourself in the mirror and like, what is going on in your business and what do you need to fix it? And how do you implement that as soon as possible?
Yeah, absolutely. I know we have touched on this topic a ton, which is like the art of delegation, right? We know that there's a period of time as a business owner where we need to wear all the hats, right? And all of the personal growth and business growth that comes from that. We're coming up on almost a year of you running your own business. How has that delegation looked like over the past year for you?
Yeah. One, I love it. So I love just being a business owner. It's really fun for me. But two, I've been able to kind of ask for help. So I have a hard time asking for help. And I'm like, I want to do everything and be able to figure it out. So I had to go to my partner, even though she has a full-time job. I'm saying, hey, if we're going to do this together, I need you to help me carry some of this weight too, because, I'm ordering the mailers. I'm making sure that our business expenses are good. I'm talking to the sellers. I'm going to the appointments, and it's tracking the numbers and all these things, right? Handwritten mailers, all this other stuff. So I basically we had to sit down, and it was almost like same thing with our roles. I had to just, the things that she was able to help me with, which is like all the back end stuff. I had to just say, hey, can you help me with this? Can you dedicate this to doing this, and this on these days? And so she said, yeah. And so that really helped me out a lot. But it was also like a really hard struggle for me to let that go and let her, hey, you can do it, because if I want to do it at a certain time or a certain day, and then maybe she's doing it a little bit later, I'm like, hey, why isn't that done yet?
Yeah.
But, it's also like just letting go of that as well. I think that answered your question.
Yeah. 100%. And now, is it right now, as your company stands, what kind of roles are the two of you playing? Are there any other team members involved, whether it's virtual, in person? What does kind of that role breakdown look like for you guys?
Yeah, so I've included my niece. She's 18 years old. She just graduated high school, and she's going to college, but she's only going a couple of days. And so she does driving for dollars for me, since that's one of my favorite things to do. But she has been doing that more often. I was training for a little bit. Now she can go and do it on her own. I also have her input the data for me as well. I have her clean some lists, like if I do code enforcement or just need to scrub some lists, I have her do that as well. So those are her responsibilities. I've included her into that. And then Cassandra, my business partner, she does more of like the handwritten mailers, more of like the ordering the mailers, and more of like financing, that kind of stuff. And then my job, since I'm good on the phones, is like to try and spend as much time as possible doing acquisitions and dispo. So right now I just have that little team going on there. Yeah. And so I recently just did hire a cold caller. She's in person here. Her name's Adriana. She's a real estate agent too, but she's trying to get into, investing as well. And so I'm just trying to show her as much as I can, and, to have cold call, for her to do cold calls for me, because I cold call the driving for dollar leads, but I don't cold call just a huge list off batch dialer or anything like that. So she's going to help me doing that. So just trying to implement as much as possible, but also still stay organized and make sure that I'm on top of everything. So that's how much I've grown a little bit since then. Yeah.
How does it feel being able to just provide these opportunities now for your niece, for somebody trying to get in the business the way Darren did for you, helping get your partner involved? I mean, how does that make you feel?
It makes me feel awesome. I love it. I love to help people. I know that it definitely helped me move quicker. And so if I can help someone move even quicker, I'm all open for that. I have a woman's script practice that I do Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And so I started this after I stopped working with Devaniel, because Devaniel, him and I and a couple other guys, we had a script practice every Monday, Wednesday, Fridays as well. And so I really enjoyed that. And I'm like, well, we're not partners anymore. He's got his thing going on. So I need to have something else to hold accountable, and two, help anybody else that maybe needs to learn the script. Because, we have Jason's, but it's like so many people, and not everybody can get a rep, or maybe somebody's too shy, or those kinds of things. Right. So got a couple women that were able to join the group, and we do that every Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And so we do script practice. We talk about deals. If somebody needs help on a specific scenario, how to talk to a seller, we'll role play those kinds of things. So I really, really enjoy it. And I feel like it fuels me more than it fuels them sometimes, because it's just really feels good to help people who really need it. Yeah.
Stay on that a little longer, because I can feel the same way at times. I mean, obviously it's extremely helpful for them.
Yeah.
What encouraged you to say that it almost feels selfish, that it's almost better for you? What do you get from it?
I think for me, it's satisfaction of just help. I've always liked to help people and make people feel good. And I think when I provide this service, I'm helping people feel good in the sense of they have a safe space, and it's a safe space to get feedback too, because I set the standard of hey, we're going to give you feedback and honest feedback, but it's to make you better, right? So it's just I'm actually providing value in a sense of they're going to be using this on their business if they want to, if they choose to, but it makes me feel good to know that they are taking that information in and at least being grateful for it. So that's what fuels me on that. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Genesis, I want to ask you what your thoughts are. You have obviously grown to the point you have your own business, but I want to ask you what your thoughts and feelings are still having your own business, but collaborating and maybe partnering with other investors in the space. And the reason I ask that is I saw this was within the past month or so, you and another investor in our community, Jacob Espinoza, tying up and partnering on, I don't even know how many deals, from the seller who's got a big portfolio, right? What are your thoughts on partnering and collaborating with other people in the space? And how do you balance that with, you wanting to run our own business, but having this whole community of other investors here that I think is special in the Valley, where we all want to lift and help each other up? What are your thoughts around collaborating and partnering?
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I collab as much as I can. I've helped a few people close a couple deals, and then people have helped me close a couple deals. So I think it's just a revolving door, right? You give and you get. And so I really, really love partnering with people, because different people have different things to provide for you, different value to bring to the table. And so I've done a couple JVs with Dylan and Bo. We got a couple hotels going on. And then Jacob too, right? We were mailing the same person. We were both having the same conversations, and he's like, hey, let's just work on it together. And so I don't know, it's fun to work with other people. For me, I'm a real people person. And so just getting to meet people and learn, and, there's so much money out there. There's so much more opportunity that why am I going to be greedy and say this is just for me when I can help someone else learn another opportunity, or someone can help me learn something. And so I think that's the biggest thing for JVing or partnering with people is, yes, definitely. I love it. And two, you just learn so much every time. Every time I partner with someone, I learn something new.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I heard you say that you are like a big people pleaser, and I can tell just from my conversations with you, you're definitely outgoing and you like being around people. What's been the transition like running your own operation, going from the team setting where I know Strive, and especially when you were there, they were a bigger team, they had a big office, to being solo? I mean, what's that process look like?
Yeah. Well, as outgoing as I seem, I'm also very introverted at the same time. So I like when I work, I sometimes like to be in my own space around nobody. So it really wasn't that hard for me. I like to be around people, but sometimes I just need my space and need to be in focus mode. And so it wasn't really that big of a change. And then having the women's script practice, it was kind of still like having that team there. And sometimes, we meet once a month for coffee or these kinds of things just to get that like community, right? But it wasn't that big of a transition for me just because I'm a little bit of both, surprisingly. Yeah.
Well, I think you can be an outgoing introvert.
Yeah.
I would have pegged you as an extrovert, so that's interesting to hear.
Yeah, no, it's I could be really awkward sometimes, and I think I talk so I don't feel awkward.
That does not make you an introvert. You're not nearly as awkward as myself or Cade. I've seen us do some pretty ridiculous stuff. I haven't seen you do that.
Yeah.
But do you just feel like energized when you get that time by yourself?
I do. Yeah. If it's needed, I feel energized, and then I can start feeling like, okay, you're spending too much time by yourself. You need to go out there and talk to people and get that other type of energy back as well. So I have a good balance of doing a little bit of both. Yeah.
I want to ask you, what would you classify as your first deal? Would you classify your first deal as the first deal you did when you were on your own with your own company? Was it when you were the acquisitions agent for Darren and his company and you inked that first contract? I want to pry in a little bit to what you would classify as your first deal and what all went into that first deal.
Yeah. So I think my first deal is my first deal, which is the deal that I got with Darren. It was a property out in the middle of nowhere. It had like a water well. Darren and I learned a lot of lessons from this first deal. I think we were trying to wholesale it, and I had to get like 2 price adjustments because I didn't run the comps right. And it had like a dried up water well, and it just had all these issues. We were trying to wholesale it. Darren we couldn't find a buyer. So Darren didn't want to cancel, and he's like, I'll just close on it and we'll figure it out. And so he ended up like listing it. I think it sat for a while. So it was like a horrible first deal. But that's kind of how it worked. Yeah. So I would say that would be my first deal. Yeah.
What did you learn from that?
I learned, one, that I need to get better at running comps, and two, just the fact that like he could even close on it. I didn't even know that was like an option. It was just like, oh my God, we're gonna have to cancel. I felt so bad. I was like, I'm doing a horrible job, but Darren did a good job of just saying, hey, like, this is your first try, we'll figure it out. And so luckily I was able to partner with someone like him that had the ability to close, and we didn't have to cancel. But it was definitely overwhelming, and just a lot of learning lessons too, because it was before I knew how to speak the verbiage. So I never set the expectation that we were going to wholesale it. So when I had to go back and have this conversation with the seller, I kind of snitched myself out, and I'm like, hey, we're not the buyer. And she's like, what do you mean you're not the buyer? And so it caused this other thing that I had to just learn. But I learned it so quick on that first deal that moving forward, I'd set that expectation that, hey, I have partners. We may be able to move this with someone else. It may not be us. And so that kind of taught me right away, hey, you need to learn how to set that expectation a lot better as well.
Well, and having to deal with difficult conversations, a price reduction conversation is not only a hard conversation, but it's not a fun conversation.
Yeah.
And you had to go through that twice on the first deal. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
When you were going through that, did you think of that video you saw of the guy talking about the cabin?
I'm like, he made it seem so damn easy. I need to hit him up right now. It was hard, but I had built really good rapport with the lady that it felt hard, but I also felt okay. I'm like, hey, this is going to work out some way. And I'm very optimistic in that way. I'm always thinking things are going to work out. And if they don't, it's for a reason. But yeah, it was a little stressful, but I think, she understood. I think like sellers always know what they have, right? And so if they can get away with whatever, they'll get away with it. And so it was a good conversation. We just kind of pointed out, hey, this is what's wrong with the property. This is why we need to bring the price down. And so when we set that up like that, it was just a little bit easier. Yeah.
I heard you say that you set expectations differently now. What does that look like?
Man, I'm definitely always making sure that I'm letting the sellers know, hey, this is what happens after we sign the agreement. I'm either going to partner with other investors or somebody else is going to buy the property. And we also are going to have contractors walk the property, right? I say contractors because I don't want to say buyers, but I'll say contractors to set that expectation. If I am going to do a walkthrough, they already know that I'm having people go out and walk the property. So that's one way that I'll set the expectations as far as like if I'm going to wholesale the property.
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to ask, have you had any hard conversations when you set that expectation with a seller?
None that I can think of off the top of my head. I'm sure maybe one or two, but not much. Yeah.
What do they typically respond when you set that expectation?
Say, okay, let me know when that's going to happen. Yeah. Or if they don't want anybody walking the property, that's usually like right at the beginning when they are straightforward and say, hey, I don't want anybody or nobody can come look at this property because there's a tenant in there. So if there's no walkthroughs available, that's usually, situated before we even get to that point towards the end. Yeah.
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 It feels like we could do a better job of setting that expectation with sellers. I mean, ultimately, when we're buying property, we're doing enough at volume now.
Yeah. Sometimes
we don't know what we're going to do with that property, and leaving that door a little bit more open would be the right way to handle it. Are you right now strictly wholesaling and a couple wholesales and flips here and there?
Yeah. So wholesaling mostly. Got a couple JVs where we're going to be wholesaling, and then I do want to do a flip eventually. Yeah. So, but right now mostly just wholesaling and wholetailing. Yeah.
And what do you like most about wholesaling? Because I think most people that we talk to, they actually kind of want to flip to get started. What drew you to wholesaling? Was it just that Instagram video, or what's kept you in that niche?
I think as I've learned the process, I just like the less of the risk that I have to take. And I like just the quicker return on your money, right? It's like, hey, you got this, now you can go and invest this and this. And I think once I find that property where I'm like, okay, this is the one that I want to flip, then I will go to that. I think I talked to you, Scott. I think it was you, because I had two properties last year that I was looking to, one I wanted to flip and one I wanted to wholesale. And you told me something that stood out to me, and you're like, Jen, both of these are vacant. You could probably just wholesale them and make just as much if you were to flip them, and you'd get them quick because they're vacant. And so when you told me that, I was like, my goal is to get one flip by the end of this month or this year, blah, blah, blah. But then I was like, okay, take a look back and look at your business. What does your business need? Your business needs money for marketing. So I kind of made that decision based off that. And so I've learned to look at my business in that way. It's like, what does the business need? Not what does Genesis ego want to say that I did a flip for this and that. You know what I mean? So I really appreciated what you told me that, because it made me kind of look at it a little bit different. Yeah.
With you set the goal initially, you wanted to own your own business. You wanted to own and run something with your partner for you and your family. What's the why behind that? What's the driving force for you to have even started something like that, to have the goal to do that and then grow something like that?
I think I've always felt like I've just never been an employee. Like I've always just felt I'm meant for more, and I can do more, and my skill set can allow me to do more. So I've always felt like, okay, I want to be able to have this freedom of saying I can do what I want to do on my time frame and not having to ask anybody. So that was the first, like the big motivation of why, right? We want to be our own bosses. Then I realized that like you're still kind of, your business is your boss. So I still got a boss to respond to. So as I'm learning through this process and I'm kind of zooming out, I'm answering this question on the fly because I haven't really thought about it. But I feel like for me, the biggest reason of why I do this is just basically to be free and to just give back to people. So I just want to be able to take care like of my niece, right? Like this is an opportunity. She's so young. If you want to go to school, go to school. But hey, there's also this whole other world that you're exposed to that I was never exposed to at that age. So if I can influence and help as many young kids as possible to say, hey, there's more out there than just like, a 9 to 5 and you can do this. And the sooner you start, the better. That's really my main goal. And just being able to provide for my loved ones, right? Like be able to pay for trips and like saying, hey, I got you. Like, let's go do this. Those are the things that motivate me to work hard, is to be able to do things to enjoy life, but not just for myself, but like for my little family that I have. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
I heard you say earlier in regards to when you were working as a correctional officer, it was a very negative environment.
Yeah.
Being a business owner is not a particularly pleasant experience all the time, but give your take. I mean, how is it different than when you were in that place where you were reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and where you're at today? I mean, how starkly different is that?
I mean, it's different. It's not what I expected. I knew that it was going to be hard, but I've gone through a lot of ups and downs, like many of us in the business, right? Where we're like, man, can I really do this? Can I really handle all this pressure? Can I handle, only getting a check every month, every 2 months? Like, cause you don't know when that next paycheck's going to come, right? But I think for me, the biggest thing that I realized is I could be negative if I want to, or I could be positive if I want to. And so I just choose to surround myself with people who have positive outlooks and also realistic, right? Like, hey, things are just going to go bad sometimes, but keeping myself around people and also checking myself too. Like we talked about earlier, right? Mindset and your growth, not just for the business, but personal growth. I've had to do a lot of checking myself and being like, hey, you're going down this like negative space. Like, why? And then kind of digging into that and what am I scared of, or what's kind of preventing me from thinking this other way. And so it's challenged me a lot in that way of just being like, hey, you can either choose to be negative or you could choose to be positive. I think there's a little bit of both in everything in this business, any job. And so I just choose to stick to positivity as much as I can. And holding myself accountable.
You shared a perspective that I've never heard anybody say before, which is why it's so interesting. Wanting to start your own business so you can be your own boss, when in reality, the business is your boss, right? What do you need to focus on this year to best help and grow your business?
I need to focus on my biggest focus is to see if I can get my partner to go full-time in the business, because if I can have her full-time, man, I know that we're just going to go to another level. Right now, it's like, she does minimal of what she can with her job. But if I could just stick to more me just being on the phones and not having to really worry about anything other than just that, I think it'll definitely take me to the next level. Yeah.
What does she do for work?
She works for a charter school with, kids who need like speech therapy and those kinds of things out of Sacramento, but she works from home. And so a lot of, Excel sheets, a lot of those things that I know she's already going to be like the integrator, I think is what they call it. Yeah. She loves that kind of stuff. So I know like she's just going to be able to level me up in that way and just take so much off my plate on that. But yeah, I mean, she's looking forward to the day where she could just be like, I'm done, dude. Yeah.
How will you know when that day's here?
I will know that day when we have about like 60K saved up first. So I have it strategically thought about this already. And it's like, hey, when we can do about 60K, that could at least let her have, about 6 to 7 months without having to work. And so I think that's enough time. I know my skill ability and she's going to be able to focus on it. So if we could have that saved up, and I would feel comfortable her quitting her job. I don't want it to be kind of like how when I just quit it with $9,000, right? That was just more off the fly. If we're going to let go of this permanent income that we're getting, it has to be smart, and we have to have the funds available for that. Yeah.
And from what you've shared, it sounds like she's on board with that goal too. She's loved and enjoyed the small part that she's been involved in and wants to do more.
Yeah, wants to do more. She's gone on a few appointments with me more recently, and I've also am showing her how to do comps too, because actually you're training how you guys have that system, right? Somebody runs a comp. So I told her, man, it'd be cool if I can get a call. You listen to the call, you run the comps for me, and then I just go and give the offer right away. So we're already working on that structure on how that's going to look like. So I get so excited because I'm just like, how much quicker can we make our business be that much simpler? And, it's just like, I get excited with those kinds of things because a lot of people, I think, join real estate and, or any kind of business. And it's like, oh, it's just this one thing, but we don't really think about all the things that make a business successful. And I think a lot of us fail in that because we don't want to learn or we don't want to hire someone to teach us those things. And so that's kind of what I've learned is like, you have to know all aspects of a business if you want to have a successful business. And so I feel like I'm in that chapter of my life right now in the business. It's like, okay, let's dial this down. How can we be more successful? And what can we do next to even grow? But my goal is to have a little team where I can just say, hey, we got dispos, we got acquisitions, and we're able to get a couple deals a month. Last year, I was averaging 1 deal a month. This year, I've set a new goal for three deals a month. And so far, I'm hitting that goal right now. I got 6 escrows now.
Let's go.
I'm super excited, just ready to work my butt off and see what happens in the future. Yeah.
I love that. You're coming in with so much confidence. You're definitely excited. Part of why we wanted to have you on is because we are seeing the activity. I mean, you sent us a deal not 2 weeks ago, and you had it at a great price. You dominated. You did everything right. Now that you're sitting here, it's been a couple years. You have a lot more experience, and way better than that Instagram video what it takes to make it. A lot of the listeners are people that are you when you were sitting in the correctional job, and you were sitting there. It's a negative environment. You read a book, maybe somebody told you go listen to a podcast. What would you tell that person now that you have a better understanding? What expectation would you set, or what advice could you give?
Ooh, that's a great question. I would say if you're going to make a decision, make an educated one, and also make it with a little bit of a risk. Like, don't be scared to take a risk, because I know a lot of people are like, well, I'll do this when this happens, and I'll do this when this happens, and it's like that. You never know when that thing's going to happen. So it has to feel right, one, for you, for your family, anybody who's involved. I'd say definitely have a support system too. So have people that support you, whether that's one person, 2 people, have a support system, because when you are transferring from a full-time job and like a 9 to 5 and you want to do a business, people are going to be like, well, what are you going to do if it doesn't work out, and all these negative things. And then that starts getting in your head. So I would say surround yourself with people that are going to encourage you and that believe in you as much as you believe in that same dream. And 2, have a plan. What is your next 6 months going to look like? What are you going to say that you're going to do, and do it. Don't just say, hey, I'm going to do this 1 month and do 2 months, but also don't get attached to that expectation, right? Because if in 6 months you don't get a deal, it doesn't mean that you're not doing a good job. It just means it's not time for you to get that deal yet. And if you just keep going and you believe in yourself, then eventually you will get there.
Where I know you mentioned one of your biggest whys is in order to give back, right? And part of what you've already been doing is the scripting on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for women in the industry. For any of our female listeners, is that open to anybody? How can people get in contact with you? What's the best way to find you on social media, on any of this stuff? For anybody listening who loves everything that you're sharing, is maybe missing that sense of community, how can they connect with you?
Yeah, you guys can add me on Instagram, Invest with Jen. You can also DM me or text me if you have my number, or if you know somebody that knows me. All it takes is an email. It's just a Zoom link that we do. It's open to anybody who wants to do it, whether you're starting off, whether you have experience, whether you have something that you want to share. I've also had people, come onto the podcast, onto the Zoom and, share what they're doing that have more experience than I do. So it's not just me sharing stuff. I'm trying to get people that can bring value to me and everybody else on the call as well. So if you feel like you have value to share and you want to join, let me know. All I need is your email and we can add you to the call.
What's your email so that they can reach out to you?
My email is meaningful.investments.llc@gmail.com.
Easy enough. Now they have no excuse. They don't have to reach out to us. They don't have to reach out to you. They can just send you an email.
Yeah, and I will hold you accountable. Just so they know. No, I had this girl, she joined Jason's program and she's like, hey, Jason told me that I got to do script practice like on a Zoom call, but I'm so nervous. And I'm like, well, let's do a call right now. Let's get you prepared. And, she's giving me all these excuses and I'm like, no, come on, let's do it right now. You do it now, you're going to be less scared when you go and do it, right? And so, we were able to do it. And so I like to push people in that way because you need someone to be able to say, hey, if this is what you want to do, then like this is what you got to do it. And so I pride myself on holding people accountable because I want to be held accountable when I'm talking out of my ass too, you know? So yeah.
That's that correctional officer side.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You want to be in line, in step with,
Exactly.
with what's right.
There
I
you
love
go.
it. Genesis, thanks for coming on. This was really fun. I can't believe we went this long without having you
I
on.
know.
Your story is perfect for our podcast.
Yeah.
I mean, just every aspect of it, from, you know, being a 9 to 5, going in, working with the team, going and partnering with other people, going out on your own and now coaching other people and helping uplift other people. I mean, it's literally a picture perfect play of what you should do if you want to get in the business.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys having me. It's been great, and the laughs and everything. And so I wish you guys the best, and I'm excited to see what next year looks like for all of us.
That's it. And next month we're doing a deal together. It's already
yeah.
almost March. We're doing a deal.
I don't have a watch,
Boom.
but yes, let's do it. We're saying it right now, so hold us accountable.
That's it. Thanks for coming on, Genesis.
Thank you guys. Appreciate you.
Thank you.